Okay, well, we're going to kick it off. Again, welcome everybody. Really appreciate you joining us today for this total economic impact study that OneSignal commissioned from Forrester. And we've got our guests here from Forrester who will go through the content in a moment. So really appreciate you taking the time. And I'll get into introductions and what OneSignal is, and I'll turn it over to Joe. So next slide. My name is Josh Wetzel. I'm Chief Revenue Officer of OneSignal. I've been the fortune or the passion or the craze to be in this sort of notion of real-time marketing for almost 2 decades now. And so we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. But specifically, Joe and Sean from Forrester will introduce themselves in their section. So let me just do a quick intro of OneSignal. For those of you who don't know, OneSignal is an omni-channel messaging platform. Really started off, it's got its roots in the push notification space at the dawn, at the beginning of mobile applications and the notion of push. It's used by approximately exactly 10% of all active applications in the iOS and Android application store, the app stores. Delivers over 10 billion messages per day. And if you go to the next slide, we'll talk about really its core. It supports all of the core digital channels, so both mobile and web push, email, SMS, in-app messaging. And the core and focus of OneSignal is not around acquisition, but really around that engagement kind of angle. So where it's important as a company, whether you have a website, an app, or both, is how do you engage with that consumer when they first land on your experience, and how do you continue that engagement? One of the things that I believe is crucial, and one of the things that makes me really passionate about what we're doing at OneSignal, is the importance of notifications and SMS in particular for that real-time notion of experience. Email is awesome, but it's an asynchronous communication channel. SMS, in-app, and push, those are things that you can actually engage and increase the viability, the utility of your experience, and really drive home that experience, whether you're onboarding a user successfully, engaging them through the process, whether it's an order, abandoned cart, you name it. It's a tremendous tool to drive it, and that's what we're going to talk about today is the necessary need to use these tools in your engagement strategy. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Joe to go through Forrester's notion of moments. Joe, take it over.
Thanks, Josh. Really appreciate it. Great intro. Want to thank the OneSignal team for inviting Sean and myself to join you today. Looking forward to a great session. And of course, you know, the team wants to thank everyone who's attending today as well. We know everyone's busy, a lot of demands on your time. It means a lot to us. You're taking a few minutes out of your busy day to spend it with us talking about moments and notifications and improving your messaging and customer engagement. My name is Joe Stanhope. I'm a Vice President and Principal Analyst at Forrester Research. I sit on our business to consumer marketing research team, where I cover marketing technology, identity resolution, and emerging tech for marketing organizations. I want to talk through briefly the trends and changes that are happening that are really driving an evolution in marketing and customer engagement. And then Sean will get us into really where the rubber hits the road and making the case for making the investments that support engaging with consumers in their moments. You know, for me, the overarching and ongoing trend at play that surrounds us beyond technical market factors is the degree to which consumers are really connected and empowered, and some might even say highly entitled. If you reflect upon how you like engaging with brands in your capacity as a consumer, and we're all consumers at the end of the day, a lot of these changes in the way we engage in the way it's evolving is going to sound very familiar. You know, consumers have become very savvy with information. We access information on our own. We know where to find it. We share it with one another, with or without the involvement of the brand. We advocate for ourselves. We've developed a strong sense of efficacy, self-efficacy. We have a feeling for what we want, what we think we deserve, and we're willing to go find it. And if we don't get it from somebody or an organization, we'll go somewhere else. We also see that consumers are increasingly willing to experiment, and we see this in the evolution of D2C brands, or the evolution of how we procure, buy, pay for, and consume various services. Think of streaming services and such, how that's such a different way to consume media and content, films, television. And that's becoming very commonplace and accepted. And of course, our device usage isn't slowing down at all. Mobile, I would say, is not necessarily a channel on its own, but it is a gateway, a plate of glass underneath which are a large variety of interaction opportunities and touch points that we can leverage. And of course, our expectations as consumers continue to grow and develop as we expect cohesive experiences, no matter where we engage, be it digital or physical. We expect them to be relevant, integrated, and seamless. And this is something that's really accelerated in the last couple of years. We saw, of course, a rapid evolution, several years of evolution in just a few months over the course of the pandemic, starting 18 months, 2 years ago, where a lot of behavior shifted very, very quickly. And we saw massive changes across that customer life cycle, from what we bought online, buying different things online that we hadn't in the past. You know, I, for one, I'd never bought groceries online until the pandemic. And now I would say that I am addicted and there's no going back. But restaurant delivery service is another great example. Consumers tell us the way they pay for products, the way they take receipt of products evolved. And what's important about this is we're seeing now that it was not just a isolated product or result of the pandemic that is going to be limited, right, to this time in our history. A lot of these behavioral changes are going to be permanent, right? And that really ups the ante in terms of brands continuing to evolve and develop the way they engage with consumers, because it has accelerated forward so very quickly, and it's going to stay that way. What it tells us is that marketers need to learn to win in customers' moments, where atomic moments really are a default type of engagement rather than the exception. And I would define a moment as the point when a person interacts with a brand to get what they want, he or she wants, immediately and in context. So this is a part of the ongoing evolution of breaking down segments to people to individual moments in the customer experience, and brands learning to be available to handle that one-to-many or one-to-moment type of interaction, breaking down the customer life cycle into its constituent parts, being ready to engage wherever, whenever that consumer wants to. Now, the good news here, I think, for marketers is that moments are all around us. They're everywhere throughout that customer life cycle. They consist of a series of moments with varying degrees of impact and value and engagement. And I think that's part of the power of thinking in terms of moments, is that moments can bind together so many singular events between the brand and a consumer. Let's say moving from acquisition to CRM, from onboarding to loyalty marketing, which Josh referenced earlier as sort of the power of using their application for omnichannel communications. And certainly the idea of moments has escalated the engagement requirements along two major dimensions. Where we engage, engagement breadth, of course, continues to increase. You know, a lot of this is a product of mobile explosion, and the granularity, moving from broad segments down to individuals in terms of the granularity of engagement. So engaging in moments becomes very individualized, very fast, high velocity, near real time. And of course, we need the predictive and automation tools to facilitate the execution of those interactions. It dramatically changes and increases the needs of the operational sphere of marketing. And I think this leads us to two key areas that marketing organizations are going to start rethinking about to make the most of engaging in moments. And the first is actually thinking about the customer engagement strategy, right? Because data and technology are ultimately tools to help marketing organizations realize and execute their strategy. So rethinking things like personalization and the value of marketing. And to me, it all starts with a mutual exchange of value between the brand and the consumer. I think the role of marketing is changing, where the ultimate goal is to create value for your customers. Your customers need to feel like they're getting value from you. And you can do this, and companies that can do this well and make customers feel like they're getting value are going to see value in return, increased profitability, market share, for example. So you can look to show the value that a customer gets across specific dimensions: the economic, the functional, experiential, and symbolic. And marketing's role here is to improve and promote the value a customer receives and make that value accessible. This then drives into how we personalize, and personalization is a broad concept of creating relevance and appropriate targeting and delivery of those individualized experiences. And as we moved again to moments-based marketing, it moves from segments and broad types of personalization to essentially having a segment of one that's highly predictive and uses all of the insights and knowledge we have about what a customer needs, what they want, and where we think they're going. And then you're going to need the technical capabilities to support a very customer-oriented engagement strategy. And this starts, one, with the data. Technology, of course, is an amazing tool that marketers have today, but data is the fuel in the engine. And in that sense, it's a good time to be a marketer because there's never been more data available. Certainly the data ecosystem is changing rapidly as elements like data deprecation set in over the next year to 18 months, and we make adaptations. We start looking more towards first-party data assets. And the way this starts is that every organization needs to look at the customer and first-party data that they have available so that they can use that to fulfill the personalization and engagement strategy that they've set out. And it's not a big data strategy. You don't need all the data all the time everywhere. It's really about determining exactly which data is necessary to execute on and having an approach to gather and move that data, to manage that data and persist it, and to ensure that you have the right elements of consent and preference management around it so your customers are on board, again, to get that value in exchanging data with you so that you can provide great experiences back to them. There will also be, as the fuel of data goes into the engine of technology, some rethinking around what the marketing technology stack needs to look like to deliver these omni-channel experiences that are very customer-led. And it involves taking what many tools that may be siloed today and really thinking about them in holistic terms and how they integrate with one another, thinking about the data needs, how we're going to optimize and test, managing the content and measuring marketing, and of course, unifying the orchestration and delivery for omni-channel communications from a single place rather than multiple execution tools that are disjointed or fragmented. The logical question for you at this point is thinking about, well, where's the win here, right? All of these things, rethinking your engagement strategy, your data approach, the technology investments you make, that requires resources, time, money, people. I wouldn't, say that it's a minor ask, but we think there's a big payoff here. When we look at consumer data here at Forrester, we see that consumers who believe that a business solves their problems, which is the fundamental, proxy for providing value, the results speak for themselves. Those consumers are 7 times more likely to stay with the business, 8 times more likely to spend more, and 8 times more likely to recommend the business. So I think there is a huge win in thinking about how to execute on a moments-based strategy and approach. And although moments are very atomic, they can be complex, and there are a lot of moments from which to work from, which is part of the excitement. But you can get started now by starting to map those moments out and understand which moments you engage in and what those moments accomplish. And rather than feeling like you're boiling the ocean, because even though moments are a relatively small construct, there's a lot happening within them to make it work. If you pinpoint your critical moments, and you probably already know what those are they transition points? Is it onboarding? Are there elements of the experience where there are high or low emotional responses? You can also look at what your highest CLV or highest value customers do to pinpoint the right moments to invest in. You don't have to optimize or invest in all of the moments, just the right moments that need enhancements. And you can break moments down into their constituent parts. Where does it occur? When does it occur? How is it built and delivered? What content do you need? And who receives it? So you pinpoint the critical moments and then break them down and look at the elements that can be enhanced or improved or where there are gaps to fill. And this becomes an iterative process over time. Again, we're not boiling the ocean. We're not fixing all the moments, every aspect all the time. You're essentially creating a plan to move forward over time, prioritizing the moments you want to go to work on, building a plan to map out which ones you're going to work on and when, and what elements you're going to work on within those moments. You're going to get buy-in as you collaborate with your stakeholders in the organization to maximize the ability to efficiently and in a streamlined way enhance those moments and deliver them. And you're going to think, of course, to deliver on that strategy and that roadmap of moment enhancement, which data and technology capabilities do you need to do that? Do you need to add capabilities? Do you need to upgrade any capabilities, fill in any gaps? And you want to have a long-term plan for the technical components that is going to make the delivery of those experiences possible. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sean. He's going to talk us through that total economic impact study that Forrester Consulting did with OneSignal and what that means in terms of essentially setting up the ability to deliver that business case to bring a moments-based engagement strategy to life.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Josh. I'm Sean Owens, Principal Consultant with Forrester's Total Economic Impact team. And I led the engagement for OneSignal to develop this TEI study that I'm going to talk about today. I'll provide a quick introduction about TEI and then start broadly and get more and more detailed into the TEI study with the goal of helping you understand the business case of OneSignal based on some of the companies that we spoke to, as well as tools to help you build your own business case. As just a note, this is a summary of a full total economic impact study that, as Josh said, was commissioned by OneSignal, and it's downloadable from OneSignal's website. So encourage you all to take a look at that if you haven't already after this. So to start, a word from one of our customers. Overall, they saw OneSignal as a great opportunity as part of their tech strategy, as Joe was talking about, to enable customer contact, enable customer moments, and enable custom content as well with app messages and browser messages and other notifications. Just to back up for a moment, TEI is Forrester's business case methodology. It's based on ROI analysis, so there's the familiar benefit and cost analysis that's included. We also risk adjust every benefit and cost to highlight any confidence or variability in the numbers and provide a bit more of a conservative approach. And we also look at flexibility or longer term options, later investments that could be added at a future time that can lead to additional benefits. So as Joe mentioned just a moment ago, customer moments can have a big payoff. And as I'll provide some examples as we go through, the customers that we spoke to saw value in OneSignal as part of their customer engagement strategy. So we talked to 4 organizations, a US sports organization, a US media outlet, a Southeast Asian mobile app developer that distributes their apps in the normal app stores worldwide in many languages, and also a US food and beverage organization. They have between 500,000 and millions, tens of millions of subscribers each. And before OneSignal, they were sending out a couple messages a month, maybe a week, maybe a day, depending. And that was actually one area they wanted to improve upon. For our TEI study, though, what we do is we take our customer interviews and create an aggregated composite organization. And this is meant to be a typical organization based on the organization, the companies that the customers that we interviewed. And we do that for 2 reasons. One is just for the simplicity of explanation and being able to highlight details of specific benefit drivers and results in one table. And what also helps us provide a little bit more anonymity for our participants, which is part of their agreement to participate. Our company has revenue of 400 million. It has 2 million subscribers. It's sending out, 2 million paid subscribers, and I'll get back to that in a moment. It's sending out a couple messages each week, and the industry that we've highlighted here for our to describe our benefits is an organization with a subscription revenue model, subscription of about $50 per year per user. That is that's based on who we spoke to and representative of the companies we spoke to, but I don't want to limit it too much. I will talk about subscriptions and paid subscriptions, but the benefits that I'll talk about could also be applied to an e-commerce model in terms of, instead of subscribers and annual subscription, it could be transactions or customers and average order value, for example. I'll get to that. I'll cover that again when we get there, but I want to make sure this should have a much broader audience than what it might look like from the start. So the interviewed organizations shared some challenges that they had with their solution, their legacy solution. They had issues with scale, so they weren't sending as many messages as they would have liked. They had slow delivery. In some cases, last to phone. And for our sports or news organizations, they might as well, close up shop. They're not going to survive if they're last to phone. That's the business. In-app messages were difficult. Emoji support was even difficult, and not related to the solution exactly, but they saw high turnover, customer turnover, subscriber turnover, and they wanted to address that. So they chose OneSignal because it was a great price. The free option provided a no-risk way to try out the product, try out the service first. It was easy to use and implement. It scales with personalization, regionalization, emoji support, able to deliver across multiple channels, and able to deliver more messages overall. So let's skip to the last page, take a peek at the end of the book. Our composite organization has achieved benefits of 2.7 million and a net present value of 2.2 million, which is net benefits, over our 3-year analysis period. And that adds up to an ROI of about 425%. But yeah, that's okay, good news. It provides value, but all right, what does that really mean? So we need to give you some more detail. The first is the categories of benefits. We saw benefits in 3 main areas in terms of, and particularly in terms of revenue and added revenue and margin. New revenue and margin from new subscribers, new or recovered revenue and margin from reduced customer churn, or in our terms, increased customer retention, and also increased revenue and margin, or again, recovered or avoided lost revenue and margin from improved abandoned cart conversions. Again, great to know the categories, nice to see the sizes, but let's give you even more detail. Now you hopefully can help build. This will help you build your own business case for your consideration of OneSignal. So first, the first benefit is more new paid subscribers gained as a result of OneSignal. In particular, the situation is users have signed up, they've registered, but they're not a paid subscriber yet. They're in a trial period or perhaps in front of a paywall, just getting a little bit of the content. And with OneSignal, they saw a 5% improvement in paid subscriptions. And that's as a result of the improved scale and delivery of quality messages. They're able to provide a nice warm welcome. That's probably an automated kind of message that's sent out when a user newly registers. And then as news or sporting events or game starts, player updates, any kinds of ongoing news and information that these registered users are interested in because they've signed up. I should point out, when I say paid subscribers, they're opting into the messages with OneSignal, and it is an opt-in model. So they've opted in, they've chosen the categories of things that they want to see, and what they want is quality content, and that might be a lot of content. It might not be much, depending on their options and the situation. A sports fan, for example, probably expects a lot of notifications. Anyway, being able to leverage OneSignal to deliver the right messages at the right time with the right content was a key driver behind this improvement. For our composite organization, what used to be expected growth rate of 30% is now improved by 5%, which equals 31.5% gross growth rate annually. They're sending more messages, and that added up to, instead of 600,000 new paid subscribers, that's 630,000, which adds up to a 3-year risk-adjusted present value of 1.2 million. And as I mentioned, subscriptions, talking about paid subscriptions here, but could easily cross some of that out in your business case and put in customers or transactions, average order value, customer lifetime value, things like that. So the second benefit is improved customer retention, or as I said before, reduced churn. And again, we had an expected churn rate. They expected that they would lose 20% of customers on an annual basis. That's gross churn rate. They saw a 5% improvement, adding up to now it's a 19% gross churn rate. That equates to 20,000 reduced subscriber losses with OneSignal for our composite organization. And that's two areas that have enabled that benefit. One is for a subscriber that hasn't been around for a little while, automatic updates can be sent, welcoming them back. Perhaps there's an offer or other incentivization to bring them back to use the service and convince them to, because they're probably have a propensity to cancel that service and try to convince them back. The other one is just quality of service. The sports organization, for example, I mentioned last to phone. Sporting event starts, 30 minutes later, the notification came that said, game started, or game starting soon. That's worthless. You're going to go find another service to get that information. With OneSignal, they're able to deliver the messages on time as expected, leading to valuable information, valuable services, driving eyeballs to games in that example. For our composite organization, the reduced subscriber losses adds up to a 3-year risk-adjusted present value of $810,000. And again, maybe not subscribers for your case, but it could be repeat sales, customers, customer lifetime value, things like that. So, and especially as you look at the full TEI study, there are tables provided in the document, and again, where it might say subscribers, you can change for your own e-commerce situation. The third benefit is actually a more retail-focused benefit. It is in reduction in abandoned carts. They expected 300,000 abandoned carts before OneSignal. Customers have filled out, even a subscription service will have a gift shop or team store, things like that. They've gone, they filled their cart and forgot, or left, or got interrupted, or were just on the fence. And an automated reminder saying, hey, yesterday you had a cart, did you want to go back? For those that did legitimately forget or were on the fence, can help convince them to come back, close that transaction. 10% improvement equals 30,000 avoided abandoned carts, $25 estimated AOV for our composite. That's $645,000 over our 3-year analysis period. There were some additional benefits to using OneSignal that customers couldn't quantify. Either they're just hard to quantify or it was too soon, such as customer satisfaction as an impact of more personalization or more effective messages. Some message creation efficiencies or management efficiencies, adding new channels, creating new opportunities for other parts of the business. And also the fact that OneSignal's platform is ready to grow for the customers we spoke to today. Even our large sports organization is ready to meet expected growth. So in a business case, costs do need to be covered so that we can calculate our ROI. The quote here is a great summary from most of the customers we spoke to. Several of them said it and forget it in terms of the ease of implementation and the little ongoing management time required to monitor at least the technology part of the solution. Costs include the main category of cost then is in the messaging subscription, the platform, using the platform itself. and the fees associated with sending those messages. We do have some resource costs. There's a little bit of IT in there, but really what it is all those new messages need someone to write them. So there's some added content investment for people that write, edit, produce, and so on, all involved in that process. And as I said, implementation costs were pretty minimal for our interviewees. So now back to the last page. For our composite organization, sending, well, before OneSignal, sending 2 million messages a year, ROI of 425%, a net present value of 2.2 million. And I hope the summary, walking through the benefit examples and providing a few alternative ways that you can look at those benefits can help you build your own business case as you evaluate OneSignal and consider it for your own organization. Just briefly, I have a couple last slides I'm just going to click through quickly. Again, this is just to remind you that this is an abridged version of the full TEI study and encourage you to go read that. There's a few definitions here that you can come back to the recording and check back if you have any questions. And with that, I want to thank you all very much. Again, as Joe said, appreciate all the time that you've given to join us today, and thank you. And Josh, thank you as well. Turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. So we've got a bunch of questions here from the audience, which is awesome to see. So I appreciate that. Let's start with you, Joe. How should companies initiate the shift to adopting a moments-based customer engagement strategy?
It's a great question because I think at an academic level, it is very appealing, but of course, these things require a heavier lift in practice and to build the momentum up to start making some of these adaptations. To me, it's really understanding the right moments to engage in. Again, and I can't warn enough, this does not need to be, nor should it be, because it's impractical, a boil the ocean kind of approach. You can improve and enhance as you go, as quickly or as slowly as your organization has resources and tech and data. So it's a little bit of initially, I think, essentially the analysis or insights development to understand what are the critical moments, right, in our customer life cycle. And of those moments, which ones present an opportunity to enhance the value, right, that we give to a consumer. And once you know which moments you're going to focus on, again, then you can start breaking them down and understand what components of these moments could we continue to enhance or improve to make that the best, most effective experience and to create a mutual benefit between our brand and that customer. So it's really the self-knowledge about the specific moments that you want to invest in, I think, is the critical starting point that sets the path.
And there's a kind of follow-up question that's underlying that, which is really infrastructure. And the question specifically is, what are the technology considerations for moments-based marketing? So I think that's a good, one level below defining the moments, but what are the technology considerations to even be able to enact the moments-based strategy?
Yeah, and that can be variable depending on the moments and the existing level of capability and investment, right, in any given company. But certainly making a shift to something that's moments-based does portend more investment in capability, because you're fundamentally talking about evolving the way you engage with customers from the way you're probably doing it today. More coordination, more informed. Essentially, this is a proxy for a personalization strategy. So thinking about the data foundation, right? Your understanding of customers, your ability to have the right data to target, to personalize, to deliver with reach to the right touch points. So rethinking the data structure. And then, of course, the technology, probably most importantly, to orchestrate this kind of omni-channel communication strategy to unwind some of that fragmentation that most likely currently exists. And rethink the way you can orchestrate and deliver in a coordinated, cohesive fashion.
Yep. Okay, that's great. And then there's another question here, which is, there's a lot of discussion in the industry about journeys. We have a a feature in our core product about it. It's talked a lot about in marketing circles. How does that map to moments-based marketing?
Yeah, true journey development, journey optimization, journey mapping. I mean, essentially journeys are a series of moments. Right? So you're really constructing the connectivity between atomic moments to follow a full journey. So I look at them as sort of a taxonomy, right, of multiple resolutions where moments feed up into journeys to the customer.
Okay. And then the next question here was about, there's a big shift happening in digital advertising in particular, and the ability to leverage data, third party and first party, to acquire users. What's your recommendation as people think about their customer acquisition and engagement strategies? How is that impacting how you guys advise clients?
In terms of the data in particular and the
Yeah, because it used to be, the sexy part was the acquisition, right? There's a lot of money spent on the front end. That's becoming a little bit more difficult with some of the deprecation of the IDFA and cookies and all these other changes that are happening in the industry.
Yeah, it's a prudent question and highly impactful. A lot of the heat right now, as you noted, is really in the advertising space, because that's where some of the initial changes are rearing up first. At Forrester, we would look at the term data deprecation as more of an umbrella concept, right, that describes a series of factors that are affecting our access to data simultaneously. Evolving consumer behavior, like the fact that a lot of us use ad blockers, the changing privacy and regulatory landscape, the way certain walled garden companies, right, are changing or even sometimes building moats and controls around the way they distribute data, even to their own advertisers. And then, of course, changes in operating systems or browsers that are removing certain data availability. So yeah, the third-party third-party cookie situation through Google Chrome is sort of kind of call number one, right? And you're right, it has a massive, massive endemic impact on the current capability of advertising, digital advertising, display media, programmatic, and so on. I think, look, the industry is going to work through that. It will be sometimes awkward and painful, getting free of a lot of those identifiers, rethinking the way we authenticate identity, creating a healthful balance between, say, person-based marketing and more contextual advertising. Those things will play out. I think in the context of moments and the OneSignal offering, what it does is it creates a big push towards emphasizing first-party data. And that's a good thing, really right place at the right time. And a lot of brands are rethinking, okay, if these changes are happening, then we have to take more responsibility and more thoughtfully apply the data that we have. And first-party data is not just the gold standard moving forward, but arguably the only standard moving forward. And so, look, we don't have 100% perfect answers to the way all these data deprecation changes are going to play out in the next year to two. But we know it is happening. We know it's highly impactful. And the first thing that everyone should start doing is, again, evaluating their existing first-party data assets and how they are used, and do a broader study internally to understand their exposure to the impact of data deprecation, be it user consent, privacy regs, or the deprecation of, like you said, IDFAs and cookies to access, to understand where the gaps could be and what that affects in your customer engagement, and then start crafting a customer engagement strategy that also encourages the exchange of data through value, how that data gets persisted and managed moving forward, and how it gets replicated. So every brand's going to have to invest essentially in a data strategy that helps them build their first party asset. It's like building up new muscles.
Yep. Okay, that's great. I appreciate it. Sean, for you, first question here was, I don't have a paid subscription model. How can I use these results for my organization? And you touched on this slightly in the dialogue, but if you can get a little more color there, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, several of the organizations, most of the organizations we interviewed had a subscription model subscription revenue model. But some didn't. Food and beverage organization, for example, that's not going to be a subscription model. That was an e-commerce model, and they were still using OneSignal for basically all the examples that I gave for the subscriptions. A bit more, a little differently, obviously, but they're still sending regular messages with relevant information to people that want it. And may not be a sports score, but it's about a burger, a new burger, or a new drink that's available, and it may be specific to an area as well, or specific to your personal preferences that you've added to your profile. And so being able to take advantage of those opportunities can drive not subscription revenue, but more sales. People, coming into the door, as for that example, could lead to physical sales, or it could be online orders or delivery orders, things like that. So it could lead to revenue in different channels, which can make it a little hard to measure, but hopefully something that any of you listeners can go find at your organization. And then you would be. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I have a follow-up on that, not specifically this, but how do you, when you do these with other companies and you're talking to businesses, some of them do a great job, and you've seen this and you saw this in these conversations as well, and I've seen this throughout my career, where they're putting in outcomes or event-based tracking, so they have a really good sense of how many people are returning, how many more orders am I generating. But some people are more it's on the engineering side or the product side, they've implemented this, it's delivering value, but they don't necessarily know the value. How do you help them in an advisement on ascertaining the value? Maybe it's in reduced engineering costs, or other ways. Are there tricks that you kind of advise people to be thinking about and evaluating these tools?
Yeah, that gets into kind of the core TEI methodology a bit, and the process of conducting a TEI engagement. In our interviews, we prepare a very detailed interview guide, and try to do as much homework as we can about the organizations that we're going to talk to. And by homework, I mean not just looking them up online, but trying to find out what they bought and how they're using it. Learn about that from in this case, you would have shared that with me for some of the organizations we interviewed, just to give us an idea of what they're doing. And we say, yes, you're right. Some have very quick answers to that, and sometimes we have to kind of break it down and kind of meander through the conversation, let them talk a bit and realize, oh, I don't know sales, but oh, actually, I know, this many things happened. Or, oh, yeah, there was a team of 30 that was having to do that before, and I, didn't really think about that, in this context. And so by having that conversation in the interview process, we hope that that's part of the value we bring in asking the right questions and being able to tease out some of that information, even if the interviewees didn't think they were going to be able to share it, didn't think they knew it before we started.
Yep. Okay, it's great. Well, Sean, Joe, I really appreciate the time and really enjoyed working with the Forrester team and all of this. Everybody who attended, thank you very much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. And we hope everybody has a wonderful Wednesday, and take care.